Hey everybody, it is Tuesday, April 23rd, but this is the Monday, April 22nd Kanye West news presented by Watching the Throne, a lyrical analysis of Kanye West. My name is Chris Lambert, and we have our most, that's a weird way to say most, our most controversial episode to date, as it's the most controversial that Kanye's been since coming back onto Twitter. Real fast, the Yeezus book is available for pre-order. It's a great book filled with narrative, thematic, and production analysis that deconstructs the entirety of Yeezus, along with a bunch of insight into the tour, the making of the album, with a lot of art inside of it as well. It's not just text, but very coolly designed. So I think you'll get a kick out of it. It's kind of it's a work of us, The Most Unruly, and Martin Connor, who runs rapanalysis.com. And you may have seen the video he did for Vox, Kanye Deconstructed, the human voice as the ultimate instrument. So this book is a collection of a lot of the work that we've all done up to this point, but presented in a new way and presented in a very visual and cool way. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Okay. One of the main things, we're gonna get to Candace Owens in a second. We don't have to look at her face this whole time though. So Kanye had a tweet about half an hour ago that said that you can say anything as long as you use the right emoji. And to test that out, I said, fuck you, with a cat heart, like a cat face with the heart eyes. That's fun, right? Like, that's something that friends would say to each other, like, I love you, fuck you. And afterwards, just to clarify, I tweeted along with that, oh my God, I'm just kidding, I love you, I just wanted to test, like, what you said. And it was going well, but then 5 minutes later, I get a security check notification, and it logs us out of Twitter and tells us that we have to answer verification questions and put in a verification code. And that would have been all well and fine, except that it's under Travis's number, and it was 12:30 in the morning, so currently locked out of our Twitter account. I guess maybe people reported us, or it's just an automatic bot. I did tweet, somebody said Donald Trump in response to me with heart eyes, and I tweeted back Donald Trump, golden star, splashy water, Russia flag. And maybe with a lot of the right-wing accounts and Russian accounts that are all over Kanye's page right now, maybe somebody didn't like that and the innuendo of my tweet. We'll see. We'll be back on Twitter tomorrow. But it is an interesting thing. In a lot of the entrepreneur books, they talk about how the dangers of building a social media platform is the fact that you don't know when that site's going to go under or when your account could be taken away from you. I mean, we have had that account for a couple of years now, and up until even this time last year, we only had something like 100 followers. By the end of 2017, we had 1,000. And in the first 4 months of 2018, we're up to 3,000. And 500, 600, 700 of that is, no, like 500 of that is just from Kanye coming back to Twitter and being involved there. So we worked really hard on that account, and just to see that it could be snatched like that and you don't have access to it, this is why they recommend for any of you entrepreneurs out there to have an email list, because nobody can take the email list away from you. It's a very powerful tool. And just to let you know of how good we are at business, we do not have an email list. So if you would like to be on our email list, go ahead and send an email to me at chris@filmcolossus.com, and you can be put on our list. It's a little better than Chris Jericho's list. Yeah. Anyway, a little other news. Kanye had tweeted out yesterday about the albums that he's putting out, and included that he is putting out a Nas album. Completely produced, hand-produced, he said, by him, which is insane. Like, we get a Kanye-produced Pusha T album. a Kanye album, a Kanye and Cudi album, then a Kanye produced Nas album, and then a Kanye produced Teyana Taylor album. All back to back to back over the course of 5 Fridays, which is just an insane level up of the concept of Good Fridays. Instead of it being just song releases, which were cool, now it's album releases on 5 consecutive Fridays. Like, fuck yeah. That's a level up. Whew. And real fast, before we get into the most controversial part, where is it? This. Kim shared a photo that Kanye had taken of her when they were in Turks and Caicos. Turks and Caicos. It sounds like it should be some kind of grocery store or local car dealership. Come on down to Turks and Caicos and we will hook you up with low financing. Yeah. I just wanted to note that Kanye is a real aesthetic person, right? He's really into the visuals. So I thought it was just fascinating to look at, for a second, the composition of this, as, you know, Kanye has an eye for that kind of thing. The thing that stands out to me, which could be a reach, but it's the contrast between the solid visual of the sheet in that horizontal plane versus the diaphanousness of the, what do you call that? I know there's a word for this. I'm a writer. I should know words, but I'm completely blanking on what that is. It's not a sheet. It's not a cloth. It's something in that vein, and I can't think of it. You know, this reminds me of one time I completely forgot of the word bus, and I spent like half an hour. This was when I was in middle school, and I spent like half an hour trying to think of what bus was. I was just like, the thing I take to school, the thing I get on for school, bus. Netting? Is it just netting? Like a mosquito net? It's a mosquito net, but I feel like a fancy place in Turks and Caicos wouldn't need mosquito nets. Maybe they'd have the best mosquito nets. Anyway, back to the point. There's a solid cloth on the horizontal plane, then a diaphanous cloth on the, or nets on the vertical plane, and Kim's in the middle, and it's all bright except it's contrasted by Kim's tan, and then in that background image you have the jungle kind of contrasting with the modernness of the room. So in terms of balance and composition and the communication between the elements in the frame, good photo. Good photo. All right, now let's get into Candace Owens. Okay. So when Kanye first tweeted, "I like the way Candace Owens thinks," I didn't think anything of it because I had no fucking idea who Candace Owens is, and now I've watched a lot of her videos and know way too much about Candace Owens. Jesus Christ, like this. Last time I mistook skin complexion for progress, I called him Barack Obama. Okay. So a lot of people have taken umbrage at Kanye praising Candace Owens because a lot of people have problems with the things that Candace Owens says. And one of the main concerns for Kanye fans is the fact that, and maybe that's being the main concern for a lot of Kanye fans, because a lot of Kanye fans are left-leaning, right? More so than the right. Except that changed in November 2016 when Kanye said that he would have voted for Trump. At that point, there was a lot of debate because a lot of people that were longtime Kanye fans felt very betrayed because a lot of people find Donald Trump vile for very good reasons. But then you have people that find Donald Trump endearing, and I think the way that people find minions endearing. I don't know why you'd want a minion as a... Okay, I'm trying to be unbiased. So when Kanye came out in support of Donald Trump and said he would have voted for Donald Trump, there was a schism, because a lot of people just heard the headline and didn't look into... Kanye spoke for like 20 minutes about this subject, and people didn't really read the details of what Kanye said. They just heard that he would have voted for Trump and automatically assumed that that meant he was for everything that Trump represented politically, which I don't think is the case, because when you look at what Kanye was saying, where is it? Finding it. Found it. You can see here, if I would have voted for Trump. There were things that I liked about Trump's campaign. There's methods, non-political methods of speaking that I like, that I feel were very futuristic, and that style and that method of communication has proven that it can beat a politically correct way of communication, and I fuck with that. I hate the fact that because I'm a celebrity, everybody told me not to say that I loved the debates. I loved his approach. It'd be like white people that's racist run around saying the N-word now. If people are racist and they feel more inspired to say how they feel, then they exposing themselves, bro. This is what I'm saying. It's already the beginning of change. Sometimes things that you may think are bad have to happen in order for change to fucking happen. And I have to say, there was a period where I was worried that Hillary's business connections would end actual intelligence, because I don't think Trump is a very intelligent person, and her knowledge of the political system would mean that she would be able to do things that would maybe cause issues over the long term, especially when it came to privatization of government, corporate interests, and corporate benefits, all of those things. So there was a little bit of a period in the early part of 2016 where I was thinking maybe Trump is the better call, because maybe he would come in and shake things up. Or in the worst case, it'd at least be a forest fire that created like all this chaos that stressed our system. And in the wake of that, we could rebuild. And, you know, in nature, the forest fire is actually something that causes a lot of destruction, but it clears out a lot of old growth, allowing new things to flourish. And the cycle of growth, fire, growth is actually how forests develop at a large scale. So part of me was thinking that maybe that would be the right call, but as 2016 progressed, there was no way that I could have felt good about voting for Trump after all the things that he had said and done that were so negative and hateful, despite still having concerns about Hillary. So I do understand being torn in that way and finding positives in something that is overall negative. And obviously, as Kanye said, he did feel that Trump's communication style clicked with people. And that was something that he talked about, like the old ways of conversation or the old ways of politically correct aren't based in anything about reality. They're not based in actually talking to people and actually having conversations with people, which is something that Kanye was getting into. Like, you need to actually talk with people. And then this idea of people exposing themselves. I do find it interesting that he talks about Trump speaking and launches into the fact of people exposing themselves, and racists specifically exposing themselves, and that change can happen because of that. Like, something that was in darkness, these racist sentiments of someone are now in the light because they felt empowered to speak. One of the things that I think is a criticism of Kanye that's been leveled over the last couple days is the fact that, what do we do then? If we know that somebody has these racist beliefs, do we just then say okay and ostracize them? Do we allow them to act on those beliefs, to continue to build on those beliefs? Oh, what's the line there? What's the next action? I mean, where do you go? Do you let something like Richard Spencer gather the group of the alt-right and start to preach and get these people? And then what do you do with them when it starts to turn into a movement that's all about deporting everybody that's non-white to their home countries? Do you let them do that? Do you just stop them and keep them off in the corner and be like, no, you can continue to meet and discuss. You just can never act on anything. I feel like there's positives to what Kanye's saying, clearly. But then there's also negatives. And the same is true on the other side of things. If you never let anybody express anything, if you make them repress everything, how then does that cause a change in society? We know that repression in an individual can cause problems, and repression in a group can also cause a bunch of angst to develop over time, which is something that we saw with the 2016 election. So repression probably isn't the answer either with some of these things, or is it? I don't know. I don't have the answer. And it doesn't seem that Kanye, at least to what he's sharing, has the answer either when it comes to something like this. And that's been the criticism with the last few days with the Candace Owens thing, in the fact that him saying, I like the way Candace Owens thinks, does that mean that he loves all of her ideas? Does it just mean that he likes one idea, the victim-victor idea? Where does he land on that? And he doesn't elaborate in that way to give us more to know where he lands. So you have people that assume the worst in what he's saying, the same way that people assume the worst in the Trump scenario. And then you have people that are Candace Owens supporters, that are conservatives, that assume the best, which was the worst case scenario for left on the left side. And people then start this whole huge debate. And it's been a firestorm on Twitter, on our Kanye, between right-leaning individuals and left-leaning individuals talking about where Kanye's at. Excuse me. And there's been a lot of immediate praise from the right because they're very ready to embrace anybody that's ready to embrace them. And there's been a lot of dissatisfaction with people on the left, much to the delight of a lot of people on the right. And there's a lot of people in the middle that are just like, I don't think I know enough to know what he was saying, which is kind of the place that Travis and I are in, is the fact that we don't know exactly how Kanye feels about this. There are some hints in his music over time, like New Slaves, for example, focuses a lot on this idea that slavery now in the modern society exists in consumerism, in celebrity, in the contracts we sign, in the things that we try to buy. And this is an idea that Kanye brought up as early in his career as All Falls Down. We buy these things to cover up what's inside. You know, the people highest up have the lowest self-esteem. There's this idea of being trapped in consumerism. And he brings that to the forefront in the modern racial climate by using I See the Blood on the Leaves in this rant against corporations and consumerism. And then on the song Blood on the Leaves, sampling Strange Fruit, which was about lynchings in the South, he talks about men and women, superficial men and superficial women, destroying each other over superficial things, money, a side piece that's hot but shallow. So you can see from Kanye's stance there that why the victim-victor mentality and why this post-new slavery mentality might be appealing to him. That he even tweeted that slavery is now a mental thing. Not that racism is a mental thing, which is something that... So Candace Owens. Candace Owens was a Democrat and then she was getting cyberbullied. So she started a website to list cyberbullies. And it was essentially, or it was decried then by people on both sides of the conversation as a doxing mechanism. It was a place where you could get more information about somebody and expose who they actually are. And this could be a dangerous weapon because while you could use it for some people that are actually bad, it could start to, just like with government surveillance, right? you could start to use it as a leverage mechanism on people that aren't doing bad things at all. It becomes like the Salem witch trials, where you could accuse anybody of being a witch, and the likelihood is that they're going to burn or be hung. So people started worrying that this list would turn into that. And Candace, at this point, talks about how she was wrong to do that. She understands that now. But it was actually the thing that inspired her to go conservative, is that she started getting bullied by feminists at that point. And her conclusion, as she said in her interview on Alex Jones, was that these women who claimed that they were being bullied by the conservative male were just making it up. They were actually bullies. They were attention seekers. Nobody was actually bullying them. They were being victims and making themselves into victims when they weren't. And they were actually the bullies. So Candace, viewing the left as hypocritical now, switched to Republican, which makes no sense to me, but I guess it made sense to her. And a lot of her views now are that we live in a post-racial America, and that minorities, especially black people, because she focuses mostly on the black community, the black community that continues to focus on racism is actually just willingly focusing on the historic past that they didn't actually experience and making themselves into victims. That racism on that level doesn't exist anymore, slavery doesn't exist anymore, that police brutality of black people isn't as bad as black people's brutality of black people, and that people just need to stop making themselves into the victim. And I think that the victor-victim mentality thing is something that's more universal. She's relating it specifically to black culture, but in both pop psychology and more formal psychology, people recognize self-limiting beliefs. It's something that's part of sports psychology. It's something that's part of business success. You can look up self-limiting belief and find dozens and dozens of articles. You can find books on it. It's very much a thing. So Candace talking about the victim mentality and that switch to victor mentality is a good thing, but how she's relating it specifically into race and this idea of a post-racial world is really problematic, especially because a lot of it's based on her individual's experiences as being the truth of the world. I'll give an example. She wrote an article where she talked about dating a white guy, and that he's a wealthy guy, and they were having a meal at his country club. And she was worried when she was there because she thought these rich white people weren't going to like this black woman that was there. And she said she felt weird and awkward, but at one point it occurred to her that everybody there was just being nice to her. Everybody there was being normal to her. Nobody was treating her like she was any different from anyone else. And it was in that moment she realized that everything was just in her head. She had been causing the problem. And once she recognized that and started acting like a victor instead, started acting like she belonged, everything was fine. And that is a good story. I think there's truth in that, and that there are situations all of us can relate to with that. It's not just a racial thing at that point. But she takes that and blows it up to the fact that this must mean that anybody experiencing this kind of, am I being racially profiled in this club or by rich white people, must be crazy, because rich white people aren't actually racist, because Candace had this experience where nobody was racist to her. So that must mean everything's okay. And that must mean everybody else is just making it up the way that the feminist had made up being bullied. Even though Candace had herself experienced bullying, so knew that the bullies were very much... Anyway, she then denies anybody else's worldview. So if I were to say I went to a golf club and I was discriminated against, she would tell me that that was just my limiting belief, that the people there were fine and that it wasn't anything. She does the same thing with police brutality. It's not that the police are actually being racist, it's just that the police are ignorant and people are acting in a way that make the police react how they do. It's not a racial thing. No, not a racial thing, which is just crazy to me. Another example is that she did a video that Black Panther is a pro-Trump movie. And part of that is because Wakanda has a very closed border isolationist policy, to the fact that people don't even know that the advanced futurist Wakanda city actually exists. They just think it's a poor third world nation. And to protect this idea of no outsiders coming in, the Wakandan king leaves behind one of his own as a child, and that child resents Wakanda because of it, and grows up to be Killmonger, who then returns to Wakanda and tries to overthrow the entire government, take control, and then turn Wakanda against the world. And he ultimately fails, but he was this close to destroying everything Wakanda had been and becoming the first global tyrant. And in this movie, he represents blowback, this idea that what a nation does outside of its borders, or even with its policy in its borders, can create a cause and effect scenario, that it might not be an immediate response, but it's something that comes back years later. And could have a crippling problem on the states. And that's the point of Black Panther, is that this isolationist and strong borders allowed for a development to a certain point, but it also would have been the downfall of the country and the downfall of the world. And that's why Wakanda at the end of the movie opens up its borders and reveals exactly what it is and wants to work with other countries and to improve the world on a whole. So it goes from isolationism to globalism. But yet, in Candace's point of view, she views that it validates everything that Trump feels about closed borders and not letting minorities come into the country or refugees come into the country, which completely misses the point. And then she condescends to anybody that thinks differently. Man. And then she will say that Democrats are problematic in the fact that they want to keep Black people in a dependent state and not let them into the future, where Republicans want Black people to not be dependent and to be independent and want to empower them. Which, I mean, I can see how you would make that case due to the fact that a lot of the left wants to have government subsidies and wants to have a safety net there for people, but it's not a race-based thing. It's not like the left is saying we only want to give food stamps to Black people. That's not a thing. They want to give any food stamps to anybody that's not able to earn a wage that allows them to have food. I was on food stamps at one point. I was living in Asheville, North Carolina, working at a Barnes & Noble, getting $500 a month, thereabouts, if I got enough shifts. I was on food stamps. It was wonderful and awful at the same time. A lot of my meals before I got on food stamps was just making spaghetti and making baked beans and putting baked beans onto spaghetti and putting peanut butter in the baked beans for a little extra protein. That's what the fuck I was eating. So it's not a race-based thing, but yet we have all of this evidence of right-wing politicians disenfranchising Black voters, demonizing Black voters, doing crazy things to minorities, and yet she calls out the left but doesn't call out the right, which becomes problematic, and which is why a lot of the reason that people have accused her of just cashing in, that she has only politicized what she feels because she sees that there's money in that there's an audience in that. It was only a year and a half ago that she made the switch from Democrat to Republican. I don't know. Will her views change again when she suffers from something like she did the first time that caused her to push like from the bullying from feminists who she was convinced weren't actually being bullied by anybody? Will she have that kind of experience again and completely change her mind? I don't know. But this is why people have had an issue with Kanye supporting her, because Kanye had always been pro people, right? And this idea that Candace has that puts all the onus on black people, and is also very kind of toxic in a way. People are now wondering if Kanye feels this way and is going to fall into that right-wing, black people shouldn't be complaining, they're making up all this racism way of thinking. And Kanye followed that up with sharing a video that Scott Adams made, of Kanye praising Candace and what it did. And Scott Adams is another controversial right-wing figure who only recently made the switch from Democrat to Republican. He's very, very pro-Trump. He's the creator of the Dilbert comic. Talk about somebody that, spent a lot of time thinking about political correctness and being contained by thoughts. To see then Donald Trump come and just blow out all sense of political correctness, decency, any of that. Adams must have been so happy. But he made a video praising Kanye, saying that what Kanye did is that Kanye was viewed as being over here, Candace as being over here, and that they shouldn't interact. They're from two different worlds, but because Kanye praised Candace, it tore a hole in reality. And there wasn't much more to it. Adam's video was very matter-of-fact, was very not political, at least the parts that Kanye shared. I don't know if the rest of it was very political, but Kanye shared clips of the video of Scott, and that sent a whole other storm that Kanye's definitely right-wing now. He's definitely all about conservative politics, and he's a hard conservative, and we just need to admit it. But so much of it comes back to the fact that Kanye is always about communication, and he seems to always be about the highest level. That it's not about what Trump was saying specifically, but it was how he was saying it. It may not be what Candace Owens is saying specifically, but how she's saying it, and that she's not supposed to be saying it. That they're saying things that are exposing themselves or exposing a way of thoughts, and that's the beginning of change. But I don't know then what Kanye wants us to do with that thought. Are we supposed to assimilate how Candace feels, how Donald Trump feels, how a blatant racist feels? Or are we supposed to completely shut those people down and shut them out? And it's probably a case-by-case basis. I mean, we do that in the court system all the time. There's different levels to a speeding ticket. There's different levels to drunk driving. There's even different levels to murder. So I don't think that there's a blanket approach to what anybody's talking about when it comes to how to deal with conflicting ideologies and the extremes of those ideologies and those groups of people gathering together, right? It's a difficult and complex situation, but with Kanye being all about communication, you have to wonder how much of it is his politics and how much of it is just him liking the fact that we're having these communications and that people are not saying the politically correct thing and causing conversation to happen that otherwise wouldn't be happening. And is that a good thing, right? Is it good that Kanye is the lightning rod that's having us have these conversations? People have said that it is a good thing, but then others have made the point that he's giving more of a voice to Candace's platform, to Adams's platform. And Adams has been a big part of the men's right movement. And I think it's something crazy. This isn't the article. That's not it either. I don't have it anymore. But it was saying that Scott Adams has been a big part of the men's right movement, where he was saying that the easiest thing to do is to treat women just like toddlers or the mentally handicapped. And that if you do that, everything's fine. But if you try to challenge a woman or talk to a woman, things go off the rails. It's just very much like this woe is me for being a man kind of attitude, and very misogynistic. Yeah. So Kanye giving him a platform as well, like, is that a good thing? Because more people will be drawn to them. More people might start to support them. But if you go by what Kanye was saying in this article about being exposed... Nope. Yeah. There. About people being exposed, like, he would argue that that's a good thing. So I feel like we're torn. Or not torn, it's just in a complicated situation, because we don't know enough about how Kanye feels to ascribe anything to his political conscience. He was just at the March for Our Lives rally in DC with Kim and North, and having a great time. He tweeted out that Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, is a free thinker after all of this praise of, not all of this praise, a singular praise of Candace Owens. So I feel like Kanye, being the performance artist that he is, understanding media and wanting to stir things up, especially before an album comes out, that this is kind of in line with less Kanye's politics, because I don't think the guy that made all the albums that he's made, that said George Bush doesn't care about black people, that's been as progressive as he is, would suddenly have a very conservative way of thinking, with conservative values. That doesn't strike me as... I mean, it's possible, but I feel like there's more going on than what we know. And that kind of brings us... I have it down there a little bit. Ebro from Hot 97. He said that he had actually commented on an Instagram post where somebody said, now we know why... No. Sorry. Trying to do this from memory. It was something where he commented on an Instagram post saying, now we know why Jay and Bey won't have play dates. And that's referring to the fact that Kanye said that Blue Ivy has never had a play date with Northwest, and why Jay have our kids never played together, which, you know, you would expect Jay and Kanye's kids to have met and seen each other and hung out and played together. So after this Candace Owens thing, that's something that Ebro said. The implication being that Kanye is kind of like crazy into this right-wing stuff, and that's why Jay-Z and Beyonce don't want him around. And one of Kanye's friends automatically sent back a comment saying, you don't know what you're talking about, essentially that. And Ebro is just like, what? So called him and was just like, yo, man, why didn't you just call and talk to me? Like, what the fuck is this commenting on things? And that while he's on the phone with this guy, he hears Kanye in the background yelling. And what results is a 30-minute phone call with Kanye where they went over a bunch of things. And one of the things was that this isn't a very good summary of it. I should have found a better one. But he said one of the things was that he only liked Candace Owens because she was challenging the way people think. It wasn't for any of the specifics, but just because she was causing that controversy. He also said that he felt like people weren't there to support him when he had his opioid addiction issue in 2016, which this would be the first time it was coming out that Kanye had an opioid addiction. That was something that nobody knew, and it's something that Ebro seemed to out Kanye on, which we still don't have confirmation if that was the thing. And all we have right here is Ebro's thoughts, right? That might be true. It might not be true. I don't know. And Kanye also said that he had more thoughts, because Ebro called him out on not finishing his thoughts and not explaining himself. And he said that he was going to take the heat for these statements and let the music he puts out do the talking. And Ebro called him out on saying that that's just riling people up to make sales. That's not really the healthy thing to do or the great thing to do. You're just kind of using your platform at that point and abusing it. And the conversation eventually got to Kanye saying, "I do love Donald Trump." There was no elaboration on that, just that he does love Donald Trump. So in the mess of everything with Candace Owens, with Scott Adams, and now him reconfirming after a year and a half that he still loves Donald Trump, people have just been going crazy. That despite even him saying it was about communication before, at this point, with everything that the Trump administration has done and failed to do and been caught doing and lied about, how could Kanye continue to love Trump? And I mean, does he love him ironically? According to Ebro, it was the fact that Kanye said that he tried to get a meeting with Obama for years and Obama would never see him, and Trump gave him time, with Ebro trying to explain that Trump only gave you time for the appearance. He was just using you to show, like, look, a famous black person likes me. See? He was never going to take anything Kanye said seriously, which I kind of think is the truth. I don't think Trump cares about anything anybody has to say, unless it's praise of him. So it gets complicated. And I've been talking for so long that my brain is starting to hurt. So that's where all of that currently stands. And there's been some not so great articles. Like the New Yorker tends to have deep thoughts, and Amanda Petrush's piece here is just really simplistic. I don't think it's coming from somebody that understands Kanye and the level that Kanye fans understand Kanye, in terms of knowing that he likes to draw controversy to himself, that he tweeted that controversy is his gym, and that this just gets into the idea of sorting someone else's personal health from afar is dangerous. And does his political beliefs negate the value of West's work or render it false? Which some of these ideas are good. I just think it's a bit more of a complex conversation than what this article gets into. But the final thought is a necessary one. Now that we have more and deeper access to the people who make the work, we have to learn how to reckon with more than just the product. That's very true. The fandom at this point isn't just about the work. It's about the person involved with the work. We stan. And that can sometimes have situations like this where it just gets crazy. So where do we go from there? This Daily Beast article by Marlo Stern is pretty good, recapping all of the Kanye Donald Trump stuff. And I think that covers all of that for now. And just to recap, I'm of the mindset that we need, that Kanye, knowing what we know, deserves more time to kind of explain himself. I don't think that he's as politically right as a lot of people are saying, though there are a lot of people that have said that any support of Trump is a line in the sand for me. Like, anybody that goes that direction, canceled. Any support of Candace, canceled. And I get that. I do, but I also think that that means that you have to be willing to jump back across that line when new information comes out. Because what we think might be the case might not always be the case. And it could go the other way too, right? Like, Kanye could love Trump's politics. Kanye could be shouting at home, build that wall. He could be watching Fox News all the time and being like, yes, the Russian scandal is, the Russia investigation is a witch hunt. Like, Trump did nothing wrong. I love Scott Pruitt. I don't think that's the case, though. And fuck Scott Pruitt. So, our Kanye, as you can imagine, has been having a field day over this. I mean, look at this. This is the political views mega thread just from yesterday. And it had 1,006 comments. And I haven't even updated this. Let's see if it loads. It's still loading. There it goes. Now it's at 1,140 comments. Update. 50 users have been banned since this thread was created. And that's because a lot of the Donald Trump supporters on the Donald and a lot of the alt-right and right-wing, like, trolls is probably too harsh of a word to use, but a lot of the people that really like to try to claim ownership of anybody that expresses even the semblance of similar beliefs have come in and been like, what's so wrong with Kanye being a conservative? Like, why does the left have to demonize them? It's been crazy to watch. And it's also, it's frustrating because they're like, can I not be a Kanye fan too just because I'm conservative? And it's like, no. It's just that the only reason you're in here is to stir up trouble and be like, why do you have to attack conservatives? It's frustrating. I've argued with a lot of them, so I'm just kind of, that's what's going through my mind. So there have been a few really good posts in here, though. Like Quentin Gambino. It seems like Kanye is trying to break down this wall of the right and left and get people to appreciate people for thinking against the grain as opposed to judging people from their political affiliation. And it's just a lot of very nuanced and interesting discussions. So if you're looking for not news articles that are written by people that might not be that well versed in Kanye, but actual Kanye fans having this kind of conversation, this is a great place for it right now. And this thread, you can kind of see some of the highlights and lowlights of the thought and the range of thoughts. So check that out. There was this post. Oh. We have 3 things from our Kanye, and just wavy, unwavy, like, Jesus fucking Christ, this is such, like, a hurricane on the ocean that who's wavy and unwavy at this point is, you can't figure it out. It's just all over the place. So Unlikely Strategy shared this post from 4chan. I'll read it since it's kind of hard to read. So Kanye saying, I want to make a rap album, but I'm too dorky to make it tough. Fuck it, I guess I'll just make it about my mom, church, and my shit job. Revolutionizes hip-hop single-handedly. Kills gangster rap. Oh, wait. Revolutionizes hip-hop, single-handedly kills gangster rap, turning the entire genre on its head, opens the genre up to everyone, and turns it into an international phenomenon in the prevalent culture of his entire generation and the next. Kanye then. I'm sad. I want to write about heartbreak. Hey, Kid Cudi, you notice how much this random drum machine I found rhymes with that? 808 and heartbreaks? That would be funny as shit. Revolutionizes pop music in general. 808 drum becomes a standard for practically every popular artist in the world, creates a blueprint for modern pop as we know it. Fuck, I'm mad. Hey, Rick Rubin, could you fuck my music up on purpose? Yeah, just get rid of half the sound. LMAO. Popularizes industrial and dark hip-hop, almost single-handedly causes rap to take a turn dark. Encourages artists in hip-hop to experiment, creates a massive new and ongoing wave of widespread innovation and credible new acts. How can one man be so fucking talented? Jesus Christ. Yeah. And lastly, maybe we're missing the points. Another very thoughtful, interesting post about everything that Kanye has been saying, with a lot of the tweets, which I can't show you because our account is suspended, and if I try to bring up the page, it shows Travis's phone number, which I did at one point 25 minutes into another version of this video and had to start over again because I have no video editing skills. Fuck. So I've actually been talking, so this is at 50 minutes, making this by far our longest episode, but I've actually been talking for like an hour and 10 minutes nonstop. Oh my goodness. I forgot this was here. Whew. All right. That does it. That's the end of the episode. You know, if you want to support us financially, you can do so via Patreon. We're currently trying to get to $300 a month. We'll be able to hire artists to consistently make unique shirts and merchandise that nobody else is offering. And we have our first one of that here. Runaway Bass shirt, and that's going to go up for sale in the next couple weeks. And we have a few different versions that are going to be available color-wise, but it's going to be awesome. We have a Hold My Liquor one coming as well, so I think people are gonna like them. If you want to buy, you don't have to be a Patreon subscriber, but just being a Patreon subscriber will make sure that we're able to get more things like this. And also you get discounts at certain levels, you get first round access to one-of-a-kind things, and even the shirts. You know, we're going to open it up to a few people first before opening it up to everybody else. So you can do that. If you don't want to give us money, but want to help us make money, you can do so by watching more of our YouTube videos and subscribing. We need to reach 4,000 watch hours in a year and 1,000 subscribers. And currently we're at, I think, 160 subscribers and 300 watch hours. So a long way to go. You can also follow us on Twitter if we get untemporarily suspended, at Kanye Podcast. And you can pre-order the Yeezus book, which would be phenomenal and would help us, The Most Unruly, Martin, Kingshot Press, and you'll get a great product out of it that'll make you see Yeezus in a way that you never did before. You will have a fundamentally different understanding of the album. I can guarantee that. And even if you've listened to all of our podcast episodes, there's new shit in there. And our podcast, you can listen to our podcast. That's very helpful. Please listen to our podcast and leave us an iTunes review. That's helpful as well. We got some negative reviews from Taylor Swift fans at one point due to Twitter conversations that I thought were very polite, but so if you want to help us out there, thank you. Sorry this video was so long. Hopefully they won't all be like this ever again. See ya.